Wow. It is hard to believe that Disneyland is still closed. And it's been closed for what? 11 months? This is one for the history books now, guys. Because in just a little while, it'll be a solid year of Disneyland being closed. Something that is hopefully a once-in-a-lifetime situation, and something that is just crazy to even think about. But you know what's tripping me out even more than Disneyland almost being closed for an entire year is another anniversary. An anniversary that is already upon us across the Esplanade. Today, my friends, February 8th, 2021 marks the 20th anniversary of the opening of Disney's California Adventure. That's right, 20 years. It is incredible to think about that. And I was here. I feel so old. You look at it today and you think about how fun it is in there and how glorious and how beautiful it is. But 20 years ago, DCA looked nothing like it did today. Let's take a step back and look at this. That, my friends, is an incredible transformation. Back on February 8th, 2001, when this place opened, that front entrance, as well as most of the park, looked completely different. Dude, just look at that. When this place opened, we had no idea what to make of it. Giant, colorful mosaic mountains, the stubby Golden Gate Bridge, what the heck? Kind of took a while to see it, but if you squinted, you realized the whole thing is supposed to be sort of a giant 3D California postcard. Thus, the giant California letters, which sadly are now long gone, but they still exist. And where else but in the capital of California, up in Sacramento, where they stand out front of Cal Expo. And of course, I visit them every chance I get. That original DCA entrance was quite a contrast from Disneyland across the way, which of course was probably the whole point. You knew right away you were entering a completely different kind of park. Man, looking around out here today on the 20th anniversary, it's hard to believe those gargantuan letters were right out here. They were quite the popular fun pick opportunity. Let me tell you, everybody had to get a picture with one letter or another, hopefully a letter in their name somehow. Of course, there was no J for me, but that's okay, that's okay. Gosh, it's so incredibly different. But the crazy thing is, I'm so used to the new Buena Vista Street and the new Disney California Adventure entrance that it just seems like a whole different place and a whole different universe. And not just out here where the giant letters have disappeared and the old postcard facade, but all throughout the park. And luckily, part of the park is still open today. So we're gonna head through the gate and keep on celebrating DCA's birthday party. Now you see, nowadays, I really enjoy coming to DCA. I really like it. I think it's beautiful. I think it's fun. But I'm going to be completely honest with you here. When it first opened, I had a very different opinion, especially up here in the front. I just didn't understand things like this. Look at that. There's restrooms in there somewhere. And compare that to today. So totally different. So bizarre. It's interesting because you can see they kept the little arched entranceways to the restrooms, but everything else around it has completely changed. Nowadays, Buena Vista Street is this fantastic, beautiful reproduction of Walt Disney's Los Angeles. And the same Buena Vista Street theme carries you from the turnstiles all the way into the park. Back when the park opened, when this stubby little Golden Gate Bridge was right there, these were actually two completely separate areas. This was the Golden Gateway, basically the giant postcard area. And if I'm not completely mistaken, today's beautiful 5 and dime used to be the edge of the postcard and known as everything under the sun. It's just crazy to think about. Those whole giant mural walls came all the way over here and curved into the bridge. It was just completely different, and I'm telling you, it was weird. Nowadays, I'd probably, enjoy the weirdness. Nowadays, I'd probably run around having fun, laughing like a loon at how strange and weird. But I'm telling you, at the time, I was kind of a sour apple about it. I mean, they took away my beautiful parking lot. The Disneyland parking lot of my childhood. And it probably didn't help that because it was so new and beautiful, a Golden Gate Bridge, that all my friends wanted to come in here all the time, and nobody wanted to go to the real Disneyland with me anymore. I mean, you look at it now, and there's so much incredible detail. They've just done such a number on the whole place. I guess the biggest transformation right here. Well, all of it's transformed. But the most striking thing once you're in here is the total lack of the old Golden Gate Bridge. Dude, so weird. Looking back and forth like that makes me realize it was a lot taller than I thought it was. And another thing I never noticed until now, am I crazy, or is Buena Vista Street a lot longer than the buildings used to be back in 2001? I mean, the bridge hasn't moved because that's where the monorail track is. I never noticed that before. That is crazy. Instead of just two little storefronts on each side, the street looks considerably longer. Because the end of the old gift shop was round, I always thought that it matched up right with the same spot as the Elias and Company round exit as well. But really, am I crazy, or does it line up down here a lot better? Dude, tripping out a little. Oh yes, it was definitely shorter. From underneath the bridge, look how long Buena Vista Street stretches today. But go back in time and holy mackerel, that is much shorter. Unbelievable. I'm just tripping out. I always thought that the length of the street was the same, so I thought that train that was at the end of the street would have been way down there, but really, it was like right over, yeah. That was the one thing I thought was really cool out here back then. You approached it from the back, so it was hard to tell, but the California Zephyr was parked out there, and eventually, when you went around the corner, you figured out it was a whole huge train. One of those old school Western Pacific diesel trains. And if you'd have asked me 20 minutes ago, I would have told you, oh, it was right down here at the end, but I guess I was wrong. I'm still tripping about that anyway. You get the point. What is now Buena Vista Street was a very, very different. And go back to those pictures and look at some of the walls, some of the weirdness. It seems so, I don't want to say cheap. That sounds negative. How about we say slapdash? It seemed a little slapdash. You know, when you enter Disneyland, you go down Main Street, USA. It's all beautiful and themed, and you reach the castle. And of course, now here you go down Buena Vista Street, and you reach the beautiful, gorgeous Carthay Circle Theater replica. It's fantastic. It's glorious. It gives you something to see. But back then, when you entered and got past that sort of weird postcard entrance and then those weird stores, you entered what was then known as Sunshine Plaza. And instead of a big, beautiful, themed, historic theater, when you got to the end of the road, you got this thing. What the heck is that? Keep it in perspective. Remember, you walk into the park, you see some gift shops, yeah, giant postcard, cool train, you go, and then, what the heck? It's a giant, pointy, sharp, razor bladey, reflective sun thing. I don't want to be negative because I love DCA now. In fact, I love it even more because Disney did so much to improve it and really make it just as magical as many of their other parks. But I gotta tell you guys, I hated that weird sun thing so much. In the morning, sometimes it would reflect light into your eyes. It just looks so sharp and pointy and kind of mean. I'm sure it looked great in the concept artwork. Don't get me wrong. I'm not blaming the artist or anything like that, but just there were so many different styles and textures up to this point. I was just like, what the heck is that thing? Actually, in all fairness, it was a pretty good symbol for the park back then, because the big thing back then was the trees were all short and brand new. There was no shade anywhere. So I remember quite a lot of sunshine. Maybe it was just all the crazy juxtapositions. Maybe I just didn't understand a lot of the symbolism. Maybe it was just the execution. I don't know. I just never really liked it. And this was supposed to be sort of the grown-up park, the adult park. Back then, you barely saw any Disney character stuff really anywhere. And instead of a lot of rides, you had some other strange stuff like tortilla making demonstrations and the winery, which is still there. I mean, some stuff like Grizzly Peak and of course the forest area beyond was awesome right from the beginning. But what I remember about this main drag from back in the day when it opened was mostly just no shade, trees, hot. And you gotta remember, long before they were building this Avengers campus here that was ready to open last year if it weren't for the pandemic and all that. And even before that, long before there was even a Bugs Land right here. The only attraction on this whole stretch of walkway was a farm area. Yes, that's right, the Bountiful Valley Farm. Featuring such epic attractions as crops, plastic cows, giant caterpillar tractors, and I think there might have been a store you could buy seeds, right? So you could go home and do some farming on your own, but it was weird, okay? No Bugs Land yet. There wasn't even Tower of Terror back there. There was basically nothing to do all along this stretch. Cars Land was still parking lot. There was pretty much nothing to do except the winery, especially if you were a kid, until you got all the way down there to Paradise Pier. Nowadays, of course, it is roped off. We still don't have access to that area of the park, but it has become Pixar Pier. It is wonderfully themed. And I gotta say, I have completely changed my attitude about it. When it opened, I was so confused, like, Walt built Disneyland partially because he didn't like those sort of ocean pier type amusement parks. They weren't very themed, they weren't very clever. It was all just very different. On the giant wheel of death, instead of having Mickey Mouse's face on there, all happy, you had the giant golden sun. Instead of the Little Mermaid over there, you had the Golden Dream Show featuring Whoopi Goldberg. It was all very strange. Nowadays, when you head back there, you can find things like Jesse's Critter Carousel, you know, all Toy Story themed. Well, back in the day, it looked like this. A little fishy, if you ask me. It looked a little fishy. The swings were surrounded by a giant orange peel and called the Orange Stinger, and actually sprayed out orange blossom smell that attracted bees, so there were bees in there, which was funny because the thing you sat in made bee noises, I think, and it was just a lot different to the swing experience you would get today, if that area was open, of course. Now, everybody liked the California Screamin' roller coaster. I mean, right from the get-go, that was the coolest thing. Finally, Disney had a coaster that would go upside down, and right in the middle of it was the giant Mickey on the side where you did the loop-de-loop. But I gotta tell you, in general, for me, the whole pier area just felt like a modern pier, like an old pier, but you were visiting it now, like in the today times. I really think the refresher they did on it when they made it Pixar Pier, and some of it in the years leading up to that, made it a lot more Victorian feeling, made it just feel cleaner, more classy, and honestly, a lot more fun. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I was just a sour, crabby jerk back then, but I've totally come around on it now, because now I really enjoy going to Pixar Pier, you know? I mean, some of the stuff that they did end up getting rid of was actually pretty interesting and pretty cool. Like, they had a giant dinosaur back there and a giant boat, which was the McDonald's, I think. For the life of me, I cannot remember the name of that boat. I had to look it up. It's the SS Rustworthy. It's supposed to say trustworthy, but the T is like kind of faded, so it's the Rustworthy. You get it? I don't think I ever knew the name of it. It was just the McDonald's boat to me. Thank you, Yesterland. There was also a giant hamburger shaped like a UFO called Burger Invasion. I think that was also McDonald's. So there was a lot of cool, like, roadside giant architecture and weird stuff back there. The kind of stuff that's right up my alley. You know, out on the highway, I go gaga for that stuff, but it just, something felt weird about it being inside of a Disney park. It just, for me, it never quite worked. Of course, some of that stuff I wish maybe they could bring it back. I don't know. It was cool. It was wacky. It was fun. It just felt strange. You know, you were used to Disneyland, and then all this. It was just kind of mind-blowing. Boy, I sure do wish we could head back there and really reminisce, especially get back to Cars Land. I'm missing Route 66 at the moment. You know what I just remembered? Right next to this thing, right next to the old vineyard area, there used to be this little shack. Ah, there we go. The San Andreas Shakes. Get it? Like San Andreas, but San Andreas Shakes. Okay. There were a lot of puns in the early DCA. A lot of puns, which is something I did appreciate. It was just very strange when you contrast it with today's DCA, where all the foliage has grown in and things have changed so much. Like, you know how the giant wheel, the giant Ferris wheel thing had the sun on it, and then there was the giant pointy metal sun fountain as you enter. Well, the reason a lot of that felt so strange is there was just a lot of this weird kind of, I don't know, almost religious symbolism vibe to the things in the park. They were trying to go for California symbols. So like in that Whoopi Goldberg thing I was telling you about, I think she was like a goddess called Khalifa, the spirit of California or something. There was a giant talking statue of her in there. And then even like in the early parades, there was just a lot of just strange symbolism and weird things. I never knew quite what was going on. Like, are those poppies down there? Is that supposed to be Pomona, the goddess of fertility? Or I have no idea. It was like part wacky over-the-top facades and part strange California iconography and part, you know, pier roller coaster theme park, and it was just hard to wrap your brain around. And then the California theme was strange because California's all around us, right? Hollywood's right up the street and the mountains are right down. So it felt weird that it was sort of slapdash, like I was saying Or you could go to all those real places very easily. I mean, now it is completely different, like night and day. The theming is so good on Buena Vista Street. The Pixar Pier area is wonderful. Cars Land is fantastic. A little bit of a shame that Tower of Terror and Bugs Land are gone, but of course all the Marvel stuff looks like it's going to be very cool and exciting. It's come a long way, and I think Disney's investment paid off, and the people who've done all this extra work have done a fantastic job. Sometimes it's just the little things that made a big difference, like the Grizzly Peak Airfield now was once called Condor Flats, I believe, and they really didn't change the layout or add many more buildings. It was always the home of one of the coolest rides from opening day, Soarin' over California, which was brand new, a totally cool new experience. 10 out of 10, must ride. But what they do was manage to keep all the fun while removing some of the pun. See what I did there? And the new paint jobs, the general blending in of this themed area with the forest redwood area just beyond it really ended up making a lot of difference. Unfortunately, the Grizzly Peak Recreation Area, as it's always been called since the very beginning, is indeed still roped off, unavailable to us guests. But since that area has changed the least, I guess for our purposes, that's okay for today. It's always been gorgeous back there. The redwood theming and all that, I've always loved that. I gotta tell you though, when they were keeping DCA more or less secret, you know, all the plans were under wraps, but they were constructing it and starting to build Grizzly Peak. We didn't know what it was. It's a little embarrassing, but I gotta tell you, I thought they were building a giant wolf mountain. So still to this day, when I look at it, I see a wolf. Come on, I can't be the only one. Okay, maybe I'm the only one. Well, since the rest of Grizzly Peak is sort of off limits to us, that just leaves us with one more land, Hollywood Land. See, Hollywood Land is kind of a weird one because it's changed so much since the opening, and yet it's also changed very little. I mean, for starters, it's called Hollywood Land now, but back then it was called Hollywood Pictures Backlot, which is a lot less catchy than Hollywood Land, in my opinion. And then once again, look at the old version of the entrance. What's up with the elephants? Lots of weird god-like things in the old DCA, huh? See, kind of like Grizzly Peak, the Hollywood area is one of the few they got right from the beginning of DCA, you know? I mean, it's much nicer than the real Hollywood, as I've mentioned many, many times, and I'm not gonna stop now, I'll keep mentioning that. I mean, look at all this, clean up your act, real Hollywood. Now, the shows in here have all changed quite a lot from the early days. Back then, the hot shows they were promoting were like, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and the Drew Carey Show, and Whose Line Is It Anyway? Actually, last night, somebody sent me a bunch of these pictures. Check it out. Look at some of the earliest celebrities coming to DCA. Disney was bringing out the stars to help promote the park. Which reminds me, and this is pretty much as good of a time as any, to mention that all of my pictures from back in the day here at DCA, from 2001 till about 2013, are completely lost. So all of the old school pictures you are seeing in this episode of Random Land were graciously donated by several people who we will mention at the end. Anyway, the whole Hollywood thing was actually kind of cool for a lot of people, you know? I mean, the MGM in Florida had worked out pretty good. Of course, Universal Studios has always been a popular theme park with sort of a how movies are made vibe. For me, the one hiccup with the Hollywood Pictures Backlot was more about the timing, you know? I mean, from the 90s back, people really didn't know how movies were made. And so, coming to a place like this was kind of cool. You're in touch with Hollywood. You're behind the scenes. You're learning a little bit about the process. Unfortunately, this park opened right at the really crazy decline of VHS tapes and the rise of the DVD. So what's on DVDs? Lots of commentaries, special features, and behind-the-scenes documentaries. So pretty much everybody everywhere now knows how movies are made. So some of the early stuff here, like a Superstar limo, which was a ride where you were basically in a limo running from the paparazzi, and there were a lot of really ugly, bizarre-looking sort of ABC stars like Regis Philbin and people popping out at you, or sitting in the audience for a fake version of your favorite TV show. Those things just don't play quite the same these days in the era of conventions and Cameo and all that kind of stuff. Which is why, of course, you've seen many of the rides change over the years and become something else, like Superstar Limo becoming Monsters Inc. Mike and Sully to the rescue. which is a darn good dark ride. It's hard to remember everything that was going on back then. I think that was a big old restaurant on the other side, that other sound stage. Now it's an Avengers photo op. And of course, sadly, in my opinion anyway, we no longer have Muppet Vision 3D over here in this area. But at least we no longer have the Mad Tea Party thing they had going on out here for a while, right? Like the Disney raves. Those were weird. This is where they're gonna get all down and funky later. Anyway, as you can see, the point is that the content has changed a lot back here in the Hollywood studios, Hollywood land, Hollywood Pictures backlot, whatever you want to call it, in the Hollywood area. And as you can see, the architecture, the structures have remained pretty much intact from the beginning. Well, the trees have gotten a little bit taller, and you know, the streets changed because they added in the red car with Buena Vista Street and all that, but come on, that really looks pretty darn close to the early days. Yeah, not too much has changed, just the content, but that's normal. I mean, we're always coming out with new movies, right? Anyway, eventually, bit by bit, of course, they added the Tower of Terror. They added a Bugs Land around the corner over here. Everything expanded and got bigger and better. Cars Land, Pixar Pier. Now the Marvel Avengers campus is gonna open up, hopefully this year. And even before the full theme park opening, they're talking about opening up more parts of DCA to give us a little food and wine style festival throughout the park. So the point I'm trying to make is DCA went from this weird, bizarre thing that I didn't even know what to do with, I didn't understand, I didn't like it very much, to a place that's actually quite beloved now. Had a lot of good memories here, there's a lot of fun stuff to do here, and even during the pandemic, it's made me think about it differently again, as it's become the one place at the Disneyland Resort we can still come and experience a little bit of that Disneyland magic. So happy birthday, DCA. Happy 20th birthday. I'm sorry I judged you so harshly in the beginning. Little did I know the way we would grow and come together as friends. You were the park that went from ugly duckling to beautiful swan. And I'm happy you did. I guess it usually takes us 18 or 20 or sometimes 30 years to grow up, right? So why should we have expected less for the theme park next to Disneyland? All right, guys. Well, we did it. DCA's 20th anniversary. Who would have thought? I went from a person that was a total DCA hater to a total DCA lover. It didn't hurt that I made a lot of wonderful memories here with Allie and of course with you guys, but look at the way they clean this place up. Man, 20 years. Hard to believe it's been 20 years. I remember when this was all parking lot as far as the eye could see. Old man Disney owned all of this. Anyway, as I mentioned, it is thanks to some very wonderful people sending in photographs that we were able to do this little look back here, including my good friend Ken Stack, who is writing a series of books about rare theme park history and stuff like that, which I will link in the description, where you can go get one of these rare books. Please stick around at the end to see their names. I am very grateful for all of you filming on new equipment today, trying out some new stuff to get ramped up and prepared for some epic adventures coming up right around the corner. But don't forget about the Random Land store, store.randomland.com. Don't forget about the ton of episodes we've got on this channel if you're looking for something to watch, including tons from DCA. And I'll see you guys next time. Because you and me, just like Disney with their DCA makeovers, have done our duty. It's time to go home and sleep well. Anyway, gang, that's all I've got for the moment. Time to thank some incredible people and show you more of their photographs. I will see you next time. Go home, sleep well, and enjoy this weird montage music. indeed. Quite a long line to get in here now. Especially that the food is open and all that stuff. And I can't believe I forgot to mention this. They did have merch, 20th anniversary merch. Some of which got shown to me. I'm sure they have a lot of other stuff. But that'll have to wait for the future. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.